Fijian Drua CEO is Mark Evans. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, no worries.
How's your season going?
Too early to say, as they said about the French Revolution. 2 games to go. Finals is in our own hands. It's been a little bit up and down. I don't want to call it before it finishes, because you never know, do you? Okay, I'd say 6 out of 10, something like that.
Do you make money?
Yeah, we do.
So that's not a problem for you then?
Yeah, it's always a problem in the sense that, we don't make a huge amount of money, but we haven't got any patron or backer of any in that sense. And we haven't got a union standing behind us to bail us out either. So we have to have a positive cash flow. We have to make money on the P&L every year. We need to have some kind of contingency reserve, and all those things are in place now. I mean, went through a lot of money. Again, in year one was a real challenge financially as well, because we had all those costs and none of the revenue from home games or home sponsorship, or that was a real. The company burnt through a lot of cash as a startup out of market. But things have stabilised this year. Well, the accounts aren't finalised, but we'll make a reasonable return, and we look fairly stable financially.
Mark Evans, CEO of the Drua, with us. Does the competition need changing, adjusting at all? Are you happy with it the way that it is?
No, it needs changing.
How?
No, I mean, it's too short. If I had to if you put my number one thing, it's too short. That's my number one comment. It's just not in market long enough to build a narrative.
So how would you keep going?
And I think you've really got to, and this will ruffle a few feathers, but if you're going to be serious about the tier below the international game, you've got to give it more. You've got to give it more time. I think you need at least a sort of 18-game regular season with however you want to then do your finals. And I think the problem with Super Rugby in the last 20 years, and this is not just in Super Rugby, I think it's happening in some other markets, such as my own of Wales, a complete obsession with the international game and the neglect of the tier below has come home to haunt people.
Just explain that further. Why do you think that is? How is that?
Has it happened, or why has it happened?
No, it happens. Just in terms of a fan, like how do we see that? How does that manifest itself?
Oh, right, okay. Well, if you're not in market for long enough, A, you don't produce enough content, and B, you don't build narratives and stories for fans to engage with, and it feels like an afterthought. And I'm still absolutely gobsmacked that there isn't, and I know we're trying to get there, and there's a lot of good people trying to get there, but it's been 20-odd years, and the competition has never had independent governance to drive it, either commercially or to fight its corner. Everything's been subsumed to the national team, and I say that about Australia, and I say that about New Zealand. I wouldn't say about Fiji, and just got in it. And if you do that, and it's not the only country that's done it, Wales has done that as well, don't be surprised over time, and it takes quite a while, if the thing withers on the vine to a degree. Now, I don't want to overstate this. I think there's some great football played in the Super Rugby competition. I think the product's pretty good, actually, and it can always be improved, and we could have a debate about actually not ball in play so much. Going ball in play is fine. I think the length of the games and the time of the ball, when the game is stopped, is much more of the issue, but that's a whole different argument. I think that what is the mistake that has been made amongst a number of unions who do, of course, control the competition through a JV or wherever it was back in the day when the South Africans were in it. Everything is focused on the international game, and then Super Rugby fits in around it. Well, that ain't ever going to work, is it? It's a bit like people who think, well, all we've got to do, and I'm not making the point about New Zealand here, I could make it about Australia, I could make it about Wales, I could make it about a couple of other countries too. If all you are concerned with is the national team because you think that is what makes the money, over time, you won't invest or give enough space to other elements of the ecosystem, it will decline. And in my observation, that is what has happened in large part in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
How does that change then? How do you actually rearrange the headspace of the national unions in charge? For example, New Zealand Rugby. I mean, we're at the moment in this hideous situation where a vote's happening next week and the whole game looks as though it's going to be torn apart. And that is, you know, a power struggle, an agreed struggle between players and administrators and provincial unions.
Well, I mean, I'm not really well enough informed on that particular issue to make a huge comment. All I would say about that is alignment within a union or within territory or whichever you want to call it is critical. And if you don't get the interests of the whole sport aligned, you're going to struggle. The idea... And I take off. I mean, I remember I've been in the game a long, long time, and I can remember a very well-known administrator in another country saying, "Well, as long as the national team, fill in the blank, is successful, it will all trickle down." Well, anyone who's looked at the game in the world globally in the last 25 years will know that is absolutely incorrect. There is very, very little evidence of that happening, if any. And what you do, I mean, we have the same debate in England where I worked for a long time as well. You know, how do you balance out the needs of privately owned clubs, so different again, with the national team? And, you know, the answer, and what we tend to end up is in England, they go the other way. They play too many games because they're desperate to make the sums add up instead of actually looking at the way they should regulate it to make the spending match the expenditure and then grow with as the game grows or decline as the game declines and adjust your costs accordingly. It's different down here. Here it's much more sort of look at the increased number of test matches.